Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's 9 p.m. here in Ireland, 10 p.m. in France. And this is our first program of 2024. I'm glad to be here with Charles. Uh, Looks like it's going to be just two of us today. So please ask us questions. And today's topic it is the Spiritism pioneers. So it's important for us to understand those who helped um, Spiritism develop along the years. So that's it. And so, bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here again with you. Happy New Year for all of you. All the best wishes, and so that's the first of the year. Hopefully, we will still be managed to continue and having these interesting chats with you all. Thanks a lot.
Great, great. So, in terms of we don't have any video today because I couldn't find any video who talk about all the pioneers of the Spiritism. That's why we will not have any video, but we can discuss here. Many of people think about Spiritism was Allan Kardec, but we can say we did have some pioneers before Kardec. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charles. We can consider the Fox sisters in Hydesville in the U.S. was the first known spiritism phenomena, or we do have any other before that, Charles?
Yes, I mean, there were a phenomenon since the world exists.
Yeah,
So, because Spiritism is just in the laws of nature, the phenomenon happened since nature is existing, since human being is existing. So, but basically, what happened in 1848 was a kind of a blast of based on this Hydesville Fox family house in Hydesville, New York State, in United States, and how to say it was I would say almost common poltergeist phenomenon, but with inspiration of the three young girls, even the youngest called Kate Fox, who started a dialogue with the raps somehow. And that was really something, how to say, a kind of a disruption, as we call it with today vocabulary, who attracted a lot of people. So it was religious people, police first, of course, to try to discover what it is, then religious people, fanatics from here or there or whatever, then journalists, and then also some scientifics who came. Okay, let's find out what's happening there. Let's find out where is the trick or whatsoever. And some of them came back saying, there is no trick. The phenomenon is really out real. And so this is how to say quite interesting because that is then a disruption where the phenomenon got known and spread all over the world. So it crossed, of course, the Atlantic Ocean, came to Europe, and in France in 1850 and the years after. This was the mode, the fashion of the turning table or dancing table or speaking table or whatever you call it. It was a kind of how, how do you say it? divertimento.
Entertainment.
Entertainment, yes, the people use that because there were not so many other entertainment at that time. Huh? And once they were sad of this entertainment, they just stopped. But here again, some people, some more serious people, started to look a little bit closer to it, huh, and continued the investigation. One of them, of course, was Allan Kardec, huh, who discovered the phenomenon in 1855. So it is 7 years after Heisville, and wrote the Spirits book in 18th of April 1857, which means 9 years after Heisville. So that is how it started. Interesting is that there is amongst these pioneers, one of them is named Arthur Conan Doyle. I think
Mhm.
everybody knows him. Huh? He is the father or the author, let's say so, of Sherlock Holmes. Huh? And he was also investigating all this abnormal phenomenon, or paranormal phenomenon. And he wrote a full book, which was the history of spiritualism, that he published first in 1926, telling the whole story, the whole history, all the people who he really made a deep investigation, historical investigation about this first step. So this is a very interesting source of information of how all of this started.
Yes, yes, and we can say um, the Fox sisters. It's important for us because that was that was the moment in which we can consider there that knocks or that message or for someone who does have intelligence, because up to that point everybody was having fun. Like Charlie said, it was more entertainment than anything.
Yeah, but for the Fox family, it was not so much entertainment. Huh? They couldn't sleep anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a little bit painful. No?
Exactly, exactly. So and by the way, I think I heard they are preparing a movie about the Fox sisters.
Yes, I think it has been published already. I think it came out. There has
Yeah,
been a lot of books and information and
yeah.
about it already. Yeah.
I heard something. So after the Fox sisters, we can consider uh, we can consider the 19th century movement, like uh, great authors, for example, Immanuel Kant. He's not the Spiritism itself, but he started to develop the idea.
Yes, indeed. And this is exactly how to say amongst the scientists, amongst the philosophers, you had several schools, several trends, and one of the trend were, I would say, more open to the spiritualist paradigm. So about the existence of the soul, existence of something else than just matter in the human being. And Kant, of course, was one of them who investigated that deeper. But in Germany, there were also other philosophers on the opposite side, Moleschott and some others, which had really pure materialistic philosophies.
Mhm.
So this, and even before Fox Sisters, you had Emanuel Swedenborg, who had also
Swedenborg,
a
Swedenborg.
site in Stockholm, and he had also a little bit complicated, uh, how to say, philosophies that he developed based on his paranormal faculties. You had also Edward Irving and the Shakers. and a lot of different. I mean, this is what I said before. I mean, it always existed everywhere in the world, but this Fox sister episode was really a trigger. I mean, to disruption to refresh the thoughts about this subject.
Yeah. And Charles, we can say, for example, even before Kardec codified the Spiritism, they studied in Sorbonne. There was a subject to study the spirit.
Yes. So it was the philosophy, which is called the French spiritualism, which it's a philosophy which has been elaborated by a philosopher called Maine de Biran. uh, and
Hmm.
he was so it was end of the 18th century, begin of the 19th, and
Hmm.
for him clearly, I mean, he was not yet basing his philosophy on paranormal phenomenon, raps, or things like that. Only by introspection he came to the conclusion that some of the attributes of the human being cannot come from the brain and must come from something independent of the physical body, and amongst those attributes, it's the will. The will cannot come from the brain. It comes from what he called then the spirit. And there was a whole philosophy, a spiritualist philosophy, yeah, which has been developed on this. So it's called French spiritualism or rational spiritualism, depending on the country you are.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So and Sorbonne and those philosophers, scientists were concentrated in this area, in which Kardec was part of one of these
Yes.
people. That's why he got in touch to the spiritists. That was he was invited to go to a session in which the tables were talking,
Mhm.
because he was related with that class of philosophers, studies. So, and unfortunately, the materialism changed everything. They removed the subject from the Sorbonne and they replaced everything with the materialism.
Yes, but this that was only in the second half of the
Yes.
19th century. So all the people who studied philosophy in the first half of the 19th century, they studied spiritualist philosophy. So this helped, of course, a lot for the uh, positive reaction, I would say, after the Fox sister phenomenon, because it was in France, but spread also around Europe and probably also in US. And also, the people were already spiritualists, so more open-minded than today, for instance, where the philosophy is more materialistic for the Spirit's book, for instance, because a materialist, he will block from the first page saying, no, the spirit does not exist, that's not possible, and so on. So when he have really a strong preconceived idea on the materialist point of view, he will not understand. He will not even read. And that was not the case in the 19th century because the people were more open to the spiritualist philosophy, but even not linked to traditional religions. Mendebiran
Mhm.
was not linked to Catholicism or Protest or Reform or whatever. It was really rational spiritualism and not dogmatic spiritualism as we see it from the traditional religions.
Exactly, exactly. So then we have Kardec himself.
I stop you a little bit. Before, also in the same period, there was Franz Anton Mesmer,
Oh,
and
Mesmer,
all
yes,
the mesmerists, which
yeah.
was Baron Dupotet, which was Deleuze, which were, there's so many, who developed a lot, the mesmerism as well. And in the mesmerism, there were two trends, two main trends. One is the so-called the fluidists. So these are the people who think all what is coming from the mesmerism is uh, coming from from the physical body itself, which has the possibility to emit fluids, so material fluids. And another trend were spiritualists, because when they investigated some subjects which were in somnambulistic states, huh, these persons sometimes revealed things which are totally out of their knowledge and of their capacity. Because we know the somnambulist, his spirit is, how to say, getting a little bit free from the physical body, and then he can perceive other spirits and even repeat or transmit what the other spirits want to tell him, including saying things about the future or detecting illnesses through the sight of the spiritual body of the people in front of them. And there were a lot of applications of that. And those guys said, no, it cannot, mesmerism cannot be only explained by fluids, materially. There is also a spiritual component. So those guys were the spiritualist mesmerists. And those, of course, were, of course, the first one most interested in the spiritist body of knowledge when Kardec came.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I forgot. Poor Mesmer. Forgot.
And there are also some other front runners. Before Hydesville, we had a guy in US called Andrew Jackson Davis,
Yeah,
isn't
the
it?
poke sick. What they call him? Poke sick. What's the name?
The prophet of the new revelation.
No, no, it's Poe. That is a name. Poke. Oh my gosh, what is it? It is. Uh, the I found here. Poughkeepsie.
Ah, see, okay.
Poughkeepsie. That's they're referring about the Andrew Jackson Davis. Oh,
Mhm.
Poughkeepsie. And then we
Poughkeepsie, yes, that is the little town where he lived at that moment, in the 1840s. So you see,
yeah,
it's a couple of years before Fox Sisters. And he has written a book. The title is escaping me right now, but I will find it. And in this book, he made the forecast that something will happen which will have a huge dissemination around the world. So somehow he predicted the Hydesville event. Huh?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. So let's put this in a chronological way. So Andrew Jackson Davis, Fox sister. Between them, we had the Kant. We have that scholar
Emile de Biran and so on,
Medibehans, Sonderberg in
Swedenborg. Huh?
Sonderborg. Then we have Mesmer, and then Richard Kardec. It's important to tell why it is important to tell all these before Kardec, because a lot of spiritists they think like Kardec was a normal person. He just someday wake up and he starts to receive the message and codify the spiritism. And this is a wrong thinking because Kardec was prepared. He was studying the subject, and this he was I would say he was familiar with the subject, not the subject spiritism, talking to spirits, see the spirits, but with the philosophy, with the beliefs. Yeah, Charles, someone from France say they put a Swedenborg here. Yes, we the
Ah, yes, I know Project 1868. Yeah.
yeah
So
yeah
it's a
so
group in south of France. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah
Swedenborg, of course, was really one of the front runner, but that is even 18th century. Huh? It's even before. Huh? And
yeah.
the
Swedenborg was
big,
before.
the big, how to say, event which happened with him was he could see um, from the city he was. Huh? It was the name of the city. My memory today is not very good. I'm a little bit tired, but okay. He was in another city in Sweden, and he saw a fire which happened in Stockholm at that same moment, and he was describing details of that fire, saying, now the fire has stopped more or less at this place or this street or this house. And when they got the information, of course, in Göteborg he was, a couple of days later, they got the information which was exactly confirming what he saw. So that is, how to say, the big event which happened with Emanuel Swedenborg.
Yeah, uh, and he wrote this book, Heaven and Hell. Is the name of the books where he
Yes,
describes his visions of the afterlife, and then even though that then happened the foundation of the Swedenborgian church.
exactly.
So
Mhm.
that's why, and
So
this is
it is that still today you have people following Swedenborg, Swedenborgian philosophy and religion. Personally, I did never study it fully. The little things I read about it showed it is quite complex. I mean, much more complex than Kardec, for instance. And Andrew Jackson Davis, I found the book he wrote, which is The Principles of Natures, Her Divine Revelations, and a Voice to Mankind. So this book he wrote in 1847. So you see, 1 year before Hydesville.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So again, this just reinforces what we are saying, that Kardec was not alone. He had a lot of predecessors and incarnated people who are prepared in order to support him.
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly. And
so
this is what he always said. He said, I did not invent anything. And the spirits also do not invent anything new. I mean, these phenomena happen since the man is existing on the earth.
yeah,
So they are part of nature. So they happened at any moment in the history. It's just that there was this trigger, this event, who made it, how to say, all this noise around the world about what happened. uh.
yeah,
And of course, there were also, Kardec was investigating the turning tables in France, but there were also some serious scientists in the US, Robert Dale Owen, for instance. So he went to Hydesville in order to unveil the trick, and came back writing totally in the opposite way. There is nothing to unveil. The phenomena are absolutely authentical, are absolutely real.
yeah, yeah. So then we have Kardec, who codified the spiritism. So he tried to put some understanding behind everything, because, as I said at the beginning, the Spiritism was more for entertainment than anything else, especially in the Kardec time. People used to go to the theater to see these kind of phenomena.
Exactly, yes. And Kardec, he really, how to say, at the beginning, how to say, he wanted to observe first, to make sure it is indeed real. But when once he could participate to a couple of sessions, and he saw immediately that there was no trickery, nothing, that the phenomenon is authentical. And you told it already, there is a cause and an effect. Every effect must have a cause. And since there are intelligent answers coming through the table, he told any intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause. And then that was, how to say, the trigger to launch his mission, the mission he selected for this life as Allan Kardec. And he dedicated the rest of his life investigating further and writing books and disseminating and so on, performing the codification. So he did not. There were also, for instance, some magazine. So Kardec did the Revue Spirit, Spiritist magazine, from 1st of January 1858. But in 1855 or 1856, there were already some magazine called La Table Parlante, the speaking table. But that magazine, it was just looking, receiving messages and writing the messages. No analysis, no comment, nothing. It was just, how to say, a kind of the facts one after the other without even doing a selection, avoiding redundancies or taking the most significant ones. So it was a little more boring than something else. Kardec did not stop only at looking at the phenomenon. He really progressed in the analysis and used the fact, for instance, that the phenomenon was itself claiming we are spirits here answering to you, incarnated spirits. We were incarnated like you some time ago, and now we are in the spiritual world, and we are transmitting you this information. So this hypothesis did not come from Kardec; it came from the phenomenon itself. And that is then how he started this investigation and went not only on the phenomenon, but again, drawing all the philosophical aspects, drawing also all the ethical and moral aspects, consequences out of the phenomenon. Okay, the spirit exists. Okay, it can communicate to human. Okay, so where does it come from? Where does it go to? Incarnation. What is the state of the spirit after dying? What happens, for instance, with somebody very bad, a criminal or something like this, with his spirit after his death? Or so he started really pushing, how to say, all this information, like explorer, when he goes at that time to a new country, was really exploring and looking, observing the people, the inhabitants of that country, and so on, in order to determine how they are thinking, how they are doing, what are their habits, and so on. And this was exactly what Kardec did, but with the spiritual world. And that's why even his first book, the Spirit's book, it's a kind, you have everything, it's almost comprehensive. So not going into much detail in each part, but comprehensive, covering all the parts. What is God? What is the universe? What is matter? What is spirit? What is the life in the spiritual world? What are the moral laws? What is good? What is evil? And consolations also at the end. So he really make a kind of complete first overview of all what he learned in these 2 years. He was investigating the phenomenon before issuing the first edition of the book.
Yeah. And in parallel with Kardec, we say, like you said, Charles, we have Arthur Conan Doyle, and also I think Crookes was. I think Crookes met Kardec, isn't it?
William Crookes? No,
Yeah.
no, he
No,
didn't meet Kardec.
or I was mistaken with Conan Doyle.
Also not. Conan Doyle
Who
came later. He's younger. Conan
who
Doyle met
Kardec
with
met in the
Leon with
UK?
Gabriel Delan, this, yes,
Yeah,
but
but
not with
who
Kardec.
Kardec met in the UK?
Anna Blackwell? Anna Blackwell, which was the first translator of the Spirit's book and the Gospel in English language, and she wrote also a biography of Allan Kardec. So he knew Anna Blackwell. She was in Paris sometime, and that's why that's how Kardec know. They met basically.
Yeah.
But William Crookes, he came later. He started his investigation in the 1870s. Okay, so it was a couple of years after Kardec passed away. Who Kardec met was Daniel Douglas Home.
Hmm.
That's maybe the one you are thinking about, huh?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So it was he was born in Scotland, I think. Huh? Then he was living in US, and he spent some time in France, 1855, until even after Kardec, huh? Producing those outstanding phenomenon of material effects, levitation, materialization, and so on. And Kardec met him and could observe the phenomenon produced by Daniel Douglas Home. Some of them even in the French imperial court with the emperor and the empress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And also, then we can start to talk about a little bit about Leon Denis. Was all this in this middle, because Leon Denis was a young fella, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
Léon
a
Denis is born in 1846, so you see 2 years before Heisville.
yeah.
He met Kardec in 1867 when Kardec and Amélie traveled to the city of Tours where he was living. So he was 21, so quite young, and he went then also to Paris to meet him again. So Léon Denis, yes, met Kardec. The
Yeah.
same happened with another front runner or let's say apostle of Spiritism, which was Gabriel Delan. Gabriel Delan is born 2 months before the Spirit's book in February 1857. And he was a small boy at the time of Kardec, sitting on his knees and when they were spending the weekend in the Villa Ségur, which was a kind of campaign,
Hmm. Hmm.
land with gardens and so on, Avenue de Ségur, which was not urbanized in Paris like it is today.
Yeah.
And the third one, which is also a front runner, is Camille Flammarion. So Camille Flammarion is a little bit older. He's born in 1842, and he knew Kardec. He went, discovered the Spirit's book and met Kardec in November 1861. And then he was a member of the Spiritist Society that Kardec founded in January 1858 and spent several years, at least until 1863. He was participating to the meeting of this society.
Yeah.
So Camille Flammarion also met very well and knew very well Kardec.
And we can say, I don't know, you know this, Charles, but here in Ireland, born in 1890, Geraldine Cummings. It's is an Irish writer who wrote a lot of novels about spiritism.
Mhm, mhm.
She's from Cork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you see, it was everywhere. You had also some, how to say, you had Bernd Torstensson, for instance, in Norway. You had Jean-Guillaume Platt in the Netherlands. You had in Italy also a lot of them, Cesare Lombroso and Ernesto Bozzano and a lot of others. So really, and of course in Spain also with Colavida and with Amalia Domingo Soler. Colavida knew and exchanges a lot of letters with Allan Kardec already. Kardec did not meet him because he never traveled to Spain, but the Spiritism in Spain had also a big push after the Auto da Fe in Barcelona, where the Bishop of Barcelona burned Spiritist books. That was the best possible advertisement for Spiritism, because all the Spanish people wanted to know what are these books that they burned. And
Yeah.
that is how really Spiritism started very strongly in Spain. And by the way, Spain was the country who organized the first International Spiritist Congress. It was in Barcelona, 1888. And the second
Wow.
one was in Paris the year after, 1889, which was
And Leon Denis was
7
there,
years
wasn't it?
of the French Revolution.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, you said it all about the land. Um, also we can say uh, we had that episode in which it was involved the what's the name that person who was looking after the spiritism in in France after Kardec passed away. I slipped his name.
Yeah, Gaëtan Lemarie.
Lemarie. Yeah, Lemarie.
Mhm.
Yeah, Lemarie. He was involved in in those pictures from spirits.
Ah, yes, yes.
You
Mhm.
know, so that this is to prove you, my friends, that spiritism was more well known than is known today.
Yes, yeah, definitively. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kardec made statistics of Spiritism. He published in the Revue Spirit of January 1869, so just shortly before he passed away. And he was numbering several hundred thousands in France and other countries of Europe, and even some millions in US. So he was accounting the spiritists and the spiritualists, which were quite close together at that time. Albeit there was, since the beginning, one different point of view, the diverging between spiritists and spiritualists, which was the reincarnation. Spiritists are believing in reincarnation, while the spiritualists are not. For them, we have only one incarnation on Earth. But okay, that's another subject and a long story.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No. No.
But
No.
Lemarie, indeed, he was the director of the Revue Spirit from 1871, I think, and until he died in 1901. So he was, I would say, he started quite close to Kardec because he was also a medium in the society, Spiritist society, together with Kardec. But afterwards, when he was leading the Revue Spirit and the Spiritist Library, and after Amélie Boudet, there was a widow of Kardec, passed away as well, he, how to say, opened a little bit the scope to theosophy, started of mixing a lot of things. And this then, of course, created some divisions in the French Spiritist movements. You had, for instance, Delanne and Gabriel Delanne and Léon Denis not following Lemarie on all that. He basically he was opening the business of the library, and the other one wanted to stay, how to say, closer to the basis established by Allan Kardec.
Exactly, exactly. Looks are here with us.
Hello, hello,
Hello,
Charles.
Monique.
Hello,
How are you?
Stevan.
Hey,
Welcome.
Decided to join you guys.
great, great, good, good, good.
Wonderful. Regards from Elsa.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
regards,
you.
Elsa, thank you. Yeah, we are talking here about it's not a non chronological way. We try to make this chronological, but we are just referring, just trying to show to everyone that Kardec wasn't alone. Kardec didn't invent anything, you know, and
Yeah.
all the branch we had with the Spiritism happening at the same time, happening in Sweden, happening here in Ireland, happening in the US, happening in France, happening in England, happening in Spain. So elsewhere, Spiritism in the 19th century, it was more well known than today.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true. And
I mean,
there was a lot of
nowadays,
physical phenomena. Yeah.
yeah, of course, there are more spiritists today than there was at that time, because today the estimations are something like 30 millions of people sympathetic to spiritism, adhering to the teaching. At that time, Kardec numbered a couple of millions only. So, of course, the world population grew as well, somehow
Yeah.
in a big proportion. But yes, so you talked about these pictures, that Les Maris, I think you mean these pictures done by Buguet. The first pictures he made were apparently authentic, but later on it turned into a business, and then he had, how to say, to feed the business. And unfortunately, at a given point in time, he started to make, how to say, two exposures on the same plate. One exposure for the spirit, and then the second one when he took a picture of the person. And this has been found, discovered, and admitted also by Buguet, and Les Maris spent 1 year in jail because of this. So that was a big scandal. Who, on one side, how to say, made they're talking a lot about spiritism, but not always in a positive way, because you had all the religious taking opportunity of that to fight against, and also these materialist scientific people also saying, you see, uh, there was this was fake, so everything was fake. You see this type of reasoning,
mhm,
and the
mhm.
journalists increasing, amplifying all these polemics, and it was quite, how to say, um, harming a lot, those years 74, 75, 76. But later on, somehow it grew even a little bit quicker, because willing or not willing, it made also some type of advertisement for the spiritist idea.
Yeah, it's usually like that. And I normally say that if you prove how you can fake a phenomenon, doesn't mean that it is fake all the time. It is a way of
Exactly.
doing it. You can, have so many different ways of having the same effect. And if you prove
Exactly.
how to fake it or show how to fake it, doesn't mean that, it's fake all the time. And Charles and I were discussing about Flammarion, and the beauty of his contribution is the fact that he showed, what could be, but he had no explanation for that. But he said, no, indeed, this cannot be something uh, just coming from what we know. There
Mhm.
is something beyond that. And of course, Kardec had the explanation for that, coming from the spirits and not, from scientists. So, I mean, and each one gave a contribution. Now, study this morning, we were talking about that. Each one gave a different contribution. Leon Denis, Kardec, of course, Gabriel Deleuze, and Flammarion, and many others. They gave
Yes.
contribution from a different perspective. So when you put everything together, and people say, "Oh, Camille Flammarion didn't explain these phenomena, that sort of a phenomenon," but what he said is that, well, we can't explain with certainty what's going on there. Can we fake that? Yes, you maybe, have the possibility of faking that, but it doesn't mean that it's fake all the time. As Charles
Exactly.
said, you can combine, two shots of a camera and create an illusion, but it's not illusion all the time. So
Yes, and
Yeah.
Camille Flammarion really he was always refusing to reject something a priori. He only rejected hypotheses when there were strong evidences to reject it. So he was, of course, not saying all the mediums receive communications from spirits. He said always it can be a lot of time auto-suggestion and things like that, but there are cases that you cannot explain in another way. And look, Camille Flammarion did not know Chico Xavier.
No, 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 no,
Chico
no.
Xavier was very young. Camille Flammarion died 1825, and the first book of Chico, I think, 1925. And the first book of Chico was, I think, 1929 or 1930 or something like this. Because Chico Xavier in Brazil is a typical example of, particularly the first book he has written, this Parnaso do Além
from the
Túmulo,
beyond, yeah, of Além Túmulo, from the beyond.
Parnassus from the Beyond,
Yeah.
where he put some poems from something like 20 different Portuguese and Brazilian writers with totally different styles, and which were really, how to say, recognized by the specialists in this area. And he was a poor guy without any education, with nothing, never studied the poetry, nothing like that. So there, typically, no, this cannot come from his subconscious or whatever. It was really something coming from somewhere else. And the same happened later on when he wrote all these letters with hundreds of evidences of proofs, identity proofs of the communicating spirits of people he was not even knowing that the people were coming to him to get a letter. So there are, of course, evidences. Flammarion could not see this outstanding case of Chico. Probably Flammarion could also not see the outstanding mediums that Kardec was using at the beginning, like Hermance Dufaux, like the Baudin sisters, or like Céline Jaffé, who really brought all the matter, basically, which is included, which Kardec compiled in the Spirits book. And it was also young ladies, 15 years for Hermance Dufaux, and 20, 21, or 22, 23 for the others, which had absolutely not the skills to bring all this consistent set of information that Kardec received through their mediumship, basically.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. And we can say, for example, this Sunday we will have, as we announced, this year we will dedicate the year to Camille Flammarion, and Charles will kick off a series of talks about Camille Flammarion. And the important thing, and I am very, very anxious to see it, is what Charles prepared, because it's a book. Charles, we don't have this in Portuguese, we don't have this in English, only in French. So Charles will open the doors for us about this book from Camille Flammarion. So it's, I can't wait to see it. And
yeah, I mean, well, for Léon Denis and Gabriel Delanne, of course, it was last year and the year before. So if you want really to have more details about Léon Denis and Gabriel Delanne, you just go to Kardec Radio or British Union of Spiritist Societies or Irish Federation. YouTube channels, you will find those speeches. And this Sunday, yes. So we discussed already. It's impossible to do Flammarion in 1 hour only.
Yeah.
So Sunday will be only a first part, and there will be a second and a third part in order to cover the huge work done by Camille Flammarion. He was really, I mean, Léon Denis and Gabriel Delanne were outstanding as well, but how to say, they were popular in the Spiritist movement, but Flammarion was not only popular in Spiritist movement, he was also popular in science, and particularly in astronomy. So he had a much bigger impact, how to say, culturally in France. And as you told, Stevan, he wrote memoir, and that is unfortunately neither Kardec nor Léon Denis nor Gabriel Delanne wrote such memoir, and we have much less information on them than the information we have about Camille. So Camille, sorry for that, it will take something like 3 hours, but it will be a more complete biography.
Yeah, because it's an autobiography. It's very rich, description in detail. It's almost like a diary where you tell things, how you perceive them, how they affected you, the thoughts that, you as the author of your own biography, what you were experiencing. And that's why it's so interesting. And as Charles said, it is a shame that Kardec and, Denis and Delanne, they haven't thought about doing it, or perhaps they have thought about that but didn't have the time, or
Or they will, yeah. Yeah, and we can say along the time, just to finalize our chronology, we can say after this we did have the contribution of Chico Xavier, uh, showing us how is the life in the spiritual world. So Emmanuel and André Luis, they brought to us a lot of knowledge about, okay, we had a phenomena, then we have Kardec codifying this phenomena, then we have Chico with his books telling us how it is the life in the spiritual world.
Developing with further details, yes.
Yes.
And about Chico, I would state, in my perception, it is the best example of, in terms of excellence of mediumship. It's, I would say, the biggest medium ever. He had really all the qualities of a good medium: humility, simplicity, total material and financial disinterestedness, and a huge production of hundreds of volumes. And he who had a very summarized education, who started to work already very young, in order to sustain his family. So he is really an outstanding example of what is a good medium.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Chico, we have today Divaldo. It was one of the predecessors of the Spiritism. Divaldo is still with us, thank God. And Divaldo went through the more the philosophical part with Joana de Angelis. So
Psychological as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
psychological. Yeah, I said philosophical. No, it's psychological part with Joana de Angelis. I think it is wrapping up, giving a structure to all these, sir, no, all these well-known structure about the spiritism.
Yeah, because you see, through Divaldo and Joanna De Angelis' work, you promote a human being. Well, now I know there's afterlife. I understand the theory. I, know the philosophical aspects of it and understand the importance of everything. But in the end of the day, I have to promote myself as an immortal spirit. And how do I do that? So we have to face psychological difficulties, that are inherent to the spirit. So her contribution was, along those lines. No longer so much more or moral contribution or scientific contribution in terms of explaining about fluids and perispirit and so on, but actually guiding us through this inner reform, as some people like to say, or development, I would say, promoting us to, a higher spiritual level.
Yeah.
Because in the end of the day, how do I change? Oh, follow Jesus. Okay, but how do I do that? Do I have to dress like Jesus, walk like Jesus, do what he did? So once I understand the essence of his teachings, how do I transform myself, in front of all that he brought to us? How do I promote myself to a higher level in the spiritual world? Because everything in my future will depend on that.
Yeah.
And in my
here,
present,
interestingly, Kardec gave a lot of hints about this, the good person or the good spiritist. We talked about it already in past logs. And I would even add, today you can even say you have to develop your spiritual intelligence. So it's a new concept which came totally out of any religion, any of spiritualist or whatever movement. That is now popping up since a little bit more than a decade. And the basic principles to develop the spiritual intelligence are totally in line with these basic principles that Kardec brought, and also totally in line with the principles that Jesus brought 2,000 years ago when correctly understood and interpreted. So it's amazing when something is in nature, it's popping up from everywhere.
Yeah. And if you listeners want to know more about the spiritual intelligence, just go back 2 lives before this one here from last week and week after. Charles and I and Rodrigo and Elsa, we spoke about a lot about the spiritual intelligence.
yeah.
So, my friends, it's about time. And before saying say thank you, let me
A lot
show
of
here.
people with us today, yeah?
Oh yeah, a lot of people. Also, we had
Thank
Elsa,
you.
Luisa Guidolin, Nicolas Rossi Gariba, Ruben de los Santos, our dear Vanessa, Marco Davis, Lou VM, Project 1868 from France. Let's see what more. Maria Isabel, and yeah, let me see here. Bleja Nadette, Ana Rosa. So a lot of people today. Great, 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 great. And yeah, so Project 1868 wrote to us here. Thank you very
Very
much.
interesting, yes.
Yeah, it was very insightful having this Spiritism history reading show us how many attempts and actions the spiritual world made on a short period of time regarding the scale of humanity to find the right persons at the right moments before. But they were also specially preparing the field so Kardec, the pedagogue and tireless worker, could codify the Spiritist teaching. It's also a good teaching for us of being in a hurry to be patient, especially involved the workers.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's
Wonderful. Merci.
absolutely true, yes. The
Merci.
plan of the spiritual of the higher benefactors is perfect. And we
Yes.
discover it little by little.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can say, and there are those things we are not have yet discovered.
Sure.
But my goal today with this live is just to show everyone that Kardec wasn't alone.
It's like a huge jigsaw puzzle. You
Yes.
get 3 or 4 pieces together. You think that's it. Oh, I understand everything now. I know I can see the full picture. But we are far from that. There are so many other pieces that have to been put together for us to have a better understanding of the divine plan.
Exactly. Okay, so let's share my screen here. Here. Okay, so next week we will talk about Napoleon and Kardec. We will just comment an interesting article recently. Our dear Vanessa with the Spiritist magazine in English, coordinated by her, published, and we will talk more about it. So it's a good conversation, a good one to bring to our program here and talk more about it. Also, we do have the movie Napoleon today in the theater. So
Stevan,
let's see.
maybe you can share the link of the Spiritist magazine, huh?
Yes. Let me check here. Okay, yeah.
So that everyone can open and see and look at it before next week
Yeah.
emission.
The link is in the comments. So I put the link there. So please go to the Spiritist magazine and read the articles. Also explore. It's free of charge. It's a wonderful job done by Vanessa and her team in the US, and it's
The
a
UK.
valuable tool for everyone. So next week, 9 p.m., 10th of January. As I said, this year is Camille van Marion year. So our 12 brave years here we'll talk about Camille van Marion. And Charles, you kick this conversation, as he said, in three parts. The first one is on the 7th of January, which is upcoming Sunday. Then we have Sunday 21st and Sunday 28th. So three parts, and this is unmissable because Charles will give us details about a book which is we only have already in French, not in Portuguese, not in English, not in other language. Okay, and I think this is it for us. So this is the normal studs we have. That's it from us. So I want to say thank you, Charles. Munir, thank you for supporting us.
It's a pleasure. I'm sorry I couldn't
giving
join you
this
guys
final
earlier.
kick, giving us this final kick. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And thank you, Elsa. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, everybody who spent their time with us. And those who will watch this later, I want to say thank you for your time as well.
Thank you all, and
I'll
best
see you
wishes
next week.
again.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much.